Big night for prediction markets in calling President Trump-elect as the winner at the polls closed. And in the week leading up to the election, the presidential election contracts on Polymarket, Kalshi, Interactive Brokers, Robinhood all indicated that Trump had a wider lead ahead of Vice President Harris than the traditional polls. And joining us right now in an exclusive interview, the man who I think led so much of this is Shayne Coplan. He is the CEO of Polymarket, and we're thrilled to have you here. Your first interview on TV.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys.
You've been in the headlines a lot. Before we even get into the whole thing, have you slept? What did you do the night of the election?
It was a late night. And I want to preface, thank you guys for having me, my first TV interview. And, as much as we feel vindication with Polymarket being right and now in hindsight being actually the most accurate way to follow the election, you guys were really the first people on TV to start talking about Polymarket and make it a thing. And I know you guys got a lot of flack for that, and I just appreciate you guys standing up for it. And hopefully you guys feel the same sense of victory that we do.
We do, but let me ask you this. Did you ever worry that the markets, your market, might not be right?
Yeah, I think that, as we got bigger, we went from being like a small niche site to sort of being a mainstream and almost household name fairly quickly. And I think that, if you take a step back, a lot of the criticism and the hit pieces were really based on misinterpretations of what Polymarket was. And I think that it was difficult to take those at face value when, if anyone really looked into it, it was clear that they were
Well, a lot of
unfounded.
the critique was, are people trying to manipulate the market?
Right.
Could one or two big whales, do something? There was obviously, you did your own investigation into this fellow from France, apparently.
Yes. I think that the thing that people get wrong about Polymarket, the thing that I wish people would understand better, and maybe now that they're more open-minded to it, is that if someone takes a really big position on Trump, for example, there's someone on the other side. There's a counterparty. It's all peer-to-peer. So there's also a really big position being taken on Harris. And because of that, and when you see the odds on Polymarket, it's not a function of how much money was put on either side. It's a function of market price at that moment. And usually there's a 0.1 cent spread. It's the tightest spread for this market in the world. And I think that when you think about it like that, some trade that someone made 2 weeks ago doesn't have bearing on what the market price is right now. So all I can say is I understand that it's a novel concept and people were skeptical when it came around, but hopefully now people will be a lot more embracing of market-based information.
So even if no one likes to lose money. So the big French trader, I don't know if you're watching, but I called him. He's not very well known. His name was Elane Musquet.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a good one, wasn't it? So, but a guy who doesn't care about even $100 million. I would think most people, nobody likes to lose $10.
Right.
Prime example of that when I bet. It kills me if I lose it. So no one is going to just throw money away unless they really can. Now, is even a person like that, could they manipulate this Polymarket?
It's a great question. So, if we run through that simulation, right, it's like, unlike the stock market, and we have all these stocks back here, the saying, and you guys know this better than anyone, is the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent because you have leverage and there's all different types of things that could happen. With Polymarket, the outcome of the market is going to happen regardless, and there's no leverage, and you can very clearly understand the true value of a share, an outcome share, by just understanding and trying to discern what the probability is of that outcome.
Hey, Shayne, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, to answer your point, so if someone is coming in and basically is ready to lose money, what that is basically saying is they're willing to buy overpriced shares. And I think, we know this, but there's a lot of, smart money on the site or paying attention to it. People, they're really smart all around the world. And if there's uninformed flow, if there's price insensitive flow, people are going to take that risk. Granted, it's up to the market to go and interpret a lot of flow, if there's a large influx of flow, whether it's informed or uninformed flow. But I do think that that's just a function of the markets working. And as we saw this time around, right, this was someone with an infinite bankroll and it didn't push the market up that much. And as it turned out, he had done a lot of research and had non-consensus information that ended up being accurate.
Yeah, nobody should have looked at it as much as I looked at it. That's all I'll say. After I downloaded the app.
You've been one of our biggest champions.
But as it would fluctuate, it would fluctuate tenths of a point, and I'd be like, oh no, what is that? Right. But I will tell you one more thing, Andrew, that happened, which it gave me just a lot of power on election night. I was watching it was either CNN or one of those channels, which I don't watch a lot, but I was watching it, and they were micro-analyzing the remaining counties left in Georgia, and Polymarket was at 89% for Trump in Georgia. And I watched it. They spent 20 minutes pretending that, and she's doing what it looks like it's possible that she's going to pick some up here. And it's like, it's over. I was screaming at the TV. It's over. It's no way in hell that it's going to happen in Georgia for her.
Yeah, on the money. Look, like, okay, there's the forecast weeks before.
I almost called CNN.
No, I love it. So there's the forecast weeks before, but the thing that is undeniable was the night of the election, Polymarket was the first destination to basically convey that Trump had won. And it was a good 2-3 hours ahead of media, so much so that people who were watching legacy media, hours later, were like, oh, wow, Polymarket has Kamala so low. We were in the office and we were looking at the odds and on Polymarket, and it looked like a done deal. And if you were just watching TV, you would think it's neck and neck.
Right.
And I think this is a complete shift of the Overton window. It is an inflection point in news and politics where Polymarket is.
Not only that, Shayne, but from the J.D. Vance debate on. Is when it started, and you could see it. You could see it on Polymarket.
It never wobbled like shares of DJT, as you pointed out.
No, but that's
but it's also market based.
It is.
It's people placing money and having.
But I think a large block at DJT can move it $5.
But I think that's what we had kind of been talking about too. Andrew made the point earlier that it's only going to be as smart as the wisdom of the crowds and people who are betting, whether it's the smart money, whether it's not. If you have people who are, and I guess your point is they're not betting what they think or what they gut or what they want. These are people who are very highly informed who are making these bets.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be all highly informed people. There can be people who know nothing, and that just goes and adds to the liquidity of the market, right? Well, the important thing is that, as the saying of free markets goes, a nod to the late, great Frederick Hayek and Robin Hanson. I got to give credit to the real thought leaders and pioneers of these ideas. A disparate group of market participants, like you see on Polymarket, is more accurate than any given expert.